The case that never existed. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight when the file landed on my desk. No return address, no name. Just a thin brown folder, worn at the edges, as if it had been handled too many times by hands that didn't want to be remembered. Inside were a few photographs. Old ones, grainy, black and white. A narrow street, an apartment building, a man standing near a street lamp, his face half hidden by shadow. And one sentence, typed on a yellowed piece of paper. They said this case never existed. I'd been a private investigator for over 10 years, long enough to know that when someone says a case never existed, it usually means it was buried. The name inside the folder was Evan Cole. Disappeared 12 years ago. Official conclusion, voluntary disappearance. No crime, no suspects. Case closed. Too clean. I started where all old cases start, the street. The address led me to an old part of the city, where buildings leaned toward each other like they were sharing secrets, the kind of place the city forgot to renovate. Cracked brick walls, flickering streetlights, windows that watched you more than you watched them. Evan Cole had lived on the 3rd floor. According to police records, he walked out one night and never came back. According to neighbors, he barely existed. Too quiet, too convenient. The first person I spoke to was an elderly woman who had lived across the hall. She hesitated when I mentioned Evan's name. "I don't remember him," she said quickly. Then she closed her door. But memory doesn't disappear that fast. Fear does. The second witness was a former shop owner down the street. His store had closed years ago, but he still sat behind the dusty counter, as if waiting for customers who would never return. When I showed him Evan's photograph, his hands shook. "He asked too many questions," the man said. "About what?" I asked. "About things people weren't supposed to notice." That night, I reviewed the photographs again. In every image, something felt wrong. A reflection in a window. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. A symbol scratched faintly into a wall behind Evan. The same symbol appeared in all the photos. The same one. I went back to the police station the next morning. The officer at the desk barely glanced at the file. "That case is closed," he said. "It was never a criminal matter." When I asked for the original evidence, he looked up at me for the first time. "You don't want to dig into this," he said quietly. That was the moment I knew Evan hadn't disappeared. He'd been erased. The deeper I went, the more resistance I met. Phone calls that ended too quickly. Doors that didn't open. People who suddenly remembered nothing. But one thing stayed consistent. The symbol. Painted over, scratched out, covered by posters. Someone had tried very hard to remove it. The final piece came from a box, hidden behind a loose brick in Evan's old apartment. Inside was a notebook. Dates, times, names. And one sentence repeated over and over again. If I disappear, it wasn't my choice. Evan had discovered something. Not a crime. A system. People didn't vanish here by accident. They were removed. Quietly. Officially. Permanently. The case never existed, because admitting it did would mean admitting how many others were missing too. When I closed the folder, I understood why it had been sent to me. Not to solve the case, but to remember it. Some stories aren't meant to end with arrests. Some just want the truth written down before it disappears again.